But I'm going to ask you something, and I'm very curious to know what you're going to say about this. Do you think that some of this lackluster is because women are not allowed to lead in the church? Do you think that if women, actually not more women, if women were allowed to have a position of leadership, do you think that that would change how it just kind of feels being in mass sometimes?
So I don't think that women should be priests. And I know you kind of do or whatever, but
Yeah.
I would say my biggest issue, and since we're going to get into gender roles in the Catholic Church, I would say my biggest issue has been in with, I guess, some of the suppression of female roles, especially specifically with the nuns that happened in Vatican II. There is only actually, fun fact, well, I don't know if it's a fun fact or if it's
No, I'll
100%
call it a fun
accurate, but
fact.
only a deacon can actually get all of the sacraments. A priest technically can get all the sacraments, but if you never get married, a priest cannot get married. Obviously, we know that. Now, if you get married, your wife passes away, and then your kids grow older, you can become a priest later. Then you did get to do all the sacraments. But if you give up your whole life to God, a priest does not get to do all sacraments. A nun also does not get to do all sacraments. The only sacrament that a woman cannot do is the sacrament of holy orders. If it was me, if I got to meet Pope Leo, I'd be, listen, best thing that you could do for women is, why is being a deacon a holy order, but not being a nun? Because
Well, yeah,
a nun can still, it's still it's still a calling to Christ, and it is holy. So why is being a priest or being a deacon a holy order, but not being a nun?
I thought
And I
they were the
think that
brides of
nuns should
Christ. Are
have
they not?
the same hierarchy of roles that a deacon can have, because there's certain things that a deacon can do that nuns can't do, and there's certain things that a priest can do that deacons and nuns can't do. So I do think that women should be able to help with the altar. I think nuns should be able to do featured homilies. I think that being a nun, and this is just because I'm a woman, is far more of an honor than being a priest,
Yeah.
because you are a bride of Christ. And it's called a vow. You're not taking, when a priest or a deacon become a priest or a deacon, it's, kind of like coronation day, it's ordination day. But a woman does it and she becomes a bride of Christ, and she takes a vow like you do with a husband. And so I would love, before I passed away, to be able to become a nun so I could take that vow as well.
Well, I think that's a huge thing you just said, though, because if I was the bride of Christ, I would expect a heck of a lot more of a platform to represent that bridal chamber. Not for
Yeah.
nothing, right? Because
Yeah.
if I'm the bride of anybody, I deserve certain acknowledgement. And
Yeah.
I remember being in the church with my grandmother. Well, there were two churches that we went to because one was St. Teresa, which was the one I grew up in. I spent the most time there. But then there was another church called St. Anthony, and that had a nursing home attached to it that my grandmother actually worked at. So
Mhm.
she loved to go there periodically so that she could see some of her residents. And she was just that kind of a person. She was just such a beautiful, wonderful person. She's a guide of mine now. She's very happy we're talking about this. And, but I can remember the way they would line all of the elderly people up. There were two floors. And so there was a balcony that went on both sides of the church. And all of the people who were elderly in their wheelchairs or whatever would be lined up along that balcony to look down upon Mass. And nuns were involved because they would help out with the elderly people. And that was the first time I had ever really encountered a nun, because the other church that I went to, there were no nuns. And that was the only church that I had ever been to that had nuns who were actively working as part of the church because they were affiliated with the nursing home. And
Yeah.
so it was beautiful. And there was a period of time in my life that I actually did want to become a nun as well.
Really?
Yes, this is what I'm
That's so
saying, like,
shocking. That's
yeah.
so
I'm
shocking.
very spiritual woman. I've always been very spiritual,
Yeah.
and not for nothing, anybody who knows astrology, I have 3 planets in my ninth house, which is the house of higher learning and religion and spirituality and exploration. And so this has just always been my journey, is to discover more about it's not about religion, it's about God. And
Yeah.
I know that, like, obviously there's different frameworks for that, but that has never been the thing that pulled me in. Um, but I do love early Christian mysticism, where it's like pre-Roman Empire, before the Roman Empire decided to come in and make this religion a
Before
law.
Paul made the church. You could say it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know. I
It
know.
annoys me that, well, because I mean, is that really what Jesus wanted? Is this what Jesus wanted?
We don't know.
Yeah. Well, we can have feelings, right? We have an
Yeah.
intuition about that. I think that when it comes to his message and how he loved, that to me is kind of how I measure things against. What I measure
Yeah.
things against is, like, we're talking about a person that lived the fullness of his humanity and the fullness of his divinity, and, like, just wanted people to know that the kingdom of heaven was within them, that light, that love exists
Yes.
within us. So anything that compromises the integrity of that statement is something that kind of twists my stomach in a knot. And I'm like, wait a second, hold on. We need to look at this a little bit closer.
And I think that's where
Uh,
they say there's discernment, you have to
right.
have discernment of what your gut tells you.
Yes. So